There is a way to grow electricity in a pot of soil. No power plant, no turbine, no solar panel bolted to a roof. A single living plant, 2 pieces of carbon fabric buried beneath its roots, and a pair of wires leaving the soil can produce measurable electrical current continuously for months, sometimes years, powered by nothing more than sunlight, water, and microscopic organisms living in the dirt. The electricity does not stop when the sun sets. It does not fade when clouds cover the sky. It flows day and night because the source of the energy is not the sky above the leaves, but the hidden economy beneath the roots. Within 2 or 3 weeks of setting up the system, a small red LED can begin to glow from a container of soil sitting quietly on a windowsill. The light is faint but unmistakable, a visible signal that electrons are moving through a wire because bacteria in the soil are digesting sugars produced by a living plant. No combustion, no moving parts, no fuel being consumed. The plant continues growing exactly as it always has while the soil quietly produces electricity. Scientists proved this phenomenon more than a century ago. Engineers demonstrated practical systems in the early 21st century. A Dutch research team used the technology to power hundreds of outdoor lights in a public park. Yet almost nobody has heard of it. The idea that electricity can be grown like a crop sounds like science fiction until the archive opens in England in the year 1911. A professor at the University of Durham named Michael Cressay Potter published a paper describing something deeply strange happening inside microbial cultures. While studying bacteria, he discovered that living microbes could generate measurable electrical current when connected to electrodes. The organisms were performing their normal metabolic processes, consuming organic material and releasing electrons as a waste product, and if those electrons were given a conductive path, they would flow through a circuit. The discovery quietly introduced a new field of research known today as microbial fuel cells. Yet the early 20th century had little interest in electricity generated by bacteria when coal and oil could power entire cities. The idea faded into scientific obscurity for nearly 100 years. During that century of neglect, plants continued doing something extraordinary beneath the surface of every forest, meadow, and garden on Earth. Photosynthesis is usually taught as a simple equation in school textbooks. Sunlight strikes a leaf, carbon dioxide from the air combines with water drawn from the soil, and the plant produces glucose, a sugar that fuels growth. The story appears elegant and efficient, but that description leaves out a biological secret that transforms the soil beneath every plant into an invisible energy reactor. Plants produce far more sugar than they can use. Studies across multiple universities have shown that living plants release between 20 and 40% of the organic carbon they create through photosynthesis directly into the surrounding soil through their roots, a process known as rhizodeposition. These sugars and organic compounds leak into the thin layer of earth surrounding the roots known as the rhizosphere, a region so densely populated with microorganisms that a single gram of soil can contain billions of bacteria. Those microbes swarm the root zone because the plant is feeding them. The sugars act as currency in a biological marketplace that has been operating for more than 400 million years. Bacteria and fungi consume the carbohydrates released by the plant and in return break down minerals locked inside soil particles, transforming nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, manganese, and other nutrients into forms the plant can absorb. This exchange allows plants to thrive in soils that would otherwise be nutritionally inaccessible. But every time those microbes digest sugar, something else happens. Electrons are released. Under normal conditions, those electrons vanish almost instantly as they are captured by oxygen or other chemical compounds present in the soil. The energy dissipates as heat and disappears into the ground. So every lawn, every forest floor, every wetland marsh, and every rice field on Earth is quietly leaking electricity into the dirt. The realization that this wasted energy could be harvested arrived in 2008 at Wageningen University and Research, one of the most respected agricultural research institutions in the world. A team of environmental engineers led by researchers including Marjolein Helder and David Strick developed a system called the Plant Microbial Fuel Cell, a device designed to intercept the electrons produced by soil bacteria feeding on plant sugars. The concept was elegant. A container of soil is divided into 2 zones. The lower zone is kept wet and packed tightly enough to become oxygen-poor, creating the anaerobic environment preferred by certain electrochemically active bacteria. A conductive carbon electrode buried in this region acts as the anode. Near the surface of the soil, where oxygen is present, a second electrode acts as the cathode. The bacteria living around the roots consume sugars released by the plant and produce electrons as metabolic waste. Normally, those electrons would combine with oxygen and disappear. But in the oxygen-deprived environment surrounding the anode, the bacteria are forced to find another destination for their excess charge. They attach themselves to the carbon electrode. Some species, including microorganisms related to the genus Geobacter, produce microscopic protein filaments known as pili that behave like conductive nanowires. These structures extend from the bacterial cell and physically connect the organism to the electrode surface, creating a direct electrical pathway between microbial metabolism and the outside world. Thousands of bacteria attach themselves to the carbon fibers and form a living layer known as a biofilm. Each cell dumps electrons onto the electrode as it digests plant sugars. Those electrons travel through an external wire toward the cathode near the surface of the soil, where they meet oxygen and combine with protons from water to form a molecule of H2O. The entire cycle is powered by sunlight captured through photosynthesis. Sunlight becomes sugar. Sugar feeds bacteria. Bacteria release electrons. Electrons flow through a wire. Electricity emerges from a pot of soil without consuming the plant that produced it. The early experiments produced small but undeniable amounts of power. Under laboratory conditions, plant microbial fuel cells produced roughly 50 milliwatts per square meter, enough to power sensors or LED lights, and theoretical calculations suggested the system could eventually reach outputs near 3.2 watts per square meter if optimized. Those numbers sound modest compared with solar panels, yet the system operates continuously. Solar energy disappears at night. Wind turbines stop when the air goes still. The electrochemical exchange beneath plant roots continues 24 hours a day because the bacteria are constantly digesting organic material released by the plant. The soil never stops working. In November of 2014, the researchers decided to demonstrate the idea outside the laboratory. A spin-off company created by the Wageningen team, Plant E, installed dozens of modular plant containers across an old military training ground in the Netherlands. Native grasses and wetland plants were growing naturally across the site. Engineers buried carbon electrodes beneath the vegetation and connected the modules with electrical wiring. As evening arrived, hundreds of small lights illuminated the landscape. More than 300 LED lamps glowed across the field, powered entirely by living plants and the bacteria feeding on their roots. No power lines had been installed, no solar panels were visible. The grass itself was generating electricity through the metabolic activity of its soil ecosystem. The project became known as Starry Sky. Visitors walking through the park that night saw a field of lights glowing gently above the grass, while the living plants beneath their feet continued growing normally, converting sunlight into sugars and quietly feeding the microbial engine below. The demonstration proved something that energy researchers had long suspected. Biology could generate electricity directly from sunlight without harvesting biomass, burning fuel, or damaging the ecosystem that produced it. The implications extended far beyond a park installation. Plant microbial fuel cells can be integrated into wetlands, green roofs, agricultural land, and rice paddies without interfering with plant growth. The plants remain alive and productive while electricity is harvested from the soil beneath them. In flooded rice fields, the conditions are naturally anaerobic, making them ideal environments for microbial fuel cells embedded beneath the crop. Rice cultivation covers approximately 160 million hectares of land worldwide. Even modest electrical output from those fields would represent a vast decentralized energy source distributed across the planet. The idea of harvesting electricity from plants growing in ordinary soil raises a question that becomes impossible to ignore once the science is understood. If living plants have been leaking electricity into the ground for hundreds of millions of years, and if the technology to collect that energy already exists, why has almost nobody heard of it? The answer begins with scale. A single potted plant connected to carbon electrodes typically produces between 0.3 and 0.7 of a volt. That voltage is enough to register on a multimeter and to power small electronic devices such as sensors or LEDs, but it will not run a refrigerator or charge a smartphone. Plant-based electricity is slow, steady, and decentralized. Modern energy systems are built around massive centralized generation. Coal plants, natural gas turbines, hydroelectric dams, and nuclear reactors produce enormous quantities of electricity that travel hundreds of kilometers through transmission lines before reaching homes and businesses. A technology that quietly generates small amounts of electricity from millions of tiny biological systems scattered across rooftops, wetlands, gardens, and rice fields does not fit easily into that structure. There is no fuel to sell, no pipeline to build, no monthly supply shipment to deliver. The bacteria do not require a subscription. And that brings us to a different experiment that has fascinated science classrooms for generations. Long before researchers buried carbon electrodes beneath plants, children were discovering that electricity could come from something far more ordinary than a power plant. A potato. Insert a strip of copper metal and a zinc nail into a potato and connect them with wires, and the two metals begin exchanging electrons through the acidic liquid inside the vegetable. The potato acts as an electrolyte, allowing ions to move between the electrodes while forcing electrons to travel through an external circuit. The result is a tiny galvanic cell. One potato produces roughly 0.8 to 1.0 volts of electricity. Two potatoes connected in series generate about 1.5 volts, enough to power a small digital LCD clock. The experiment became famous as the two-potato clock, a simple demonstration of electrochemistry that shows how chemical reactions between metals can generate electrical current. The potato itself is not the source of the energy. The energy comes from the chemical reaction between zinc and copper, while the potato simply provides the conductive medium that allows ions to move between them. Students build the device using two potatoes, galvanized nails, copper wires, and alligator clips, connecting the electrodes to the battery terminals of a small clock. As soon as the circuit is completed, the display flickers to life, powered by nothing more than vegetables sitting on a classroom desk. The clock runs until the potato dries out or the metal electrodes corrode, usually lasting several days or weeks. The experiment demonstrates a simple truth that rarely receives much attention. Electricity does not require a power plant. It only requires a pathway for electrons to move. The potato battery relies on chemical corrosion between metals. The plant microbial fuel cell relies on bacteria metabolizing sugars produced by photosynthesis. Both systems reveal the same fundamental principle that modern electrical infrastructure often hides beneath layers of technology. Energy is everywhere, and the difference between wasted energy and usable electricity is often nothing more than a wire placed in the right location. And beneath every plant on Earth, billions of microorganisms are already generating electrons as part of their daily metabolism. The soil has been quietly producing electricity for hundreds of millions of years. Human civilization simply never thought to plug into it. However, the most surprising part of this entire story is not that plants can generate electricity through the activity of the organisms living around their roots. The surprising part is how simple it is to build one. No laboratory equipment is required, no complex chemistry, no specialized engineering degree. The biological machinery doing the work already exists in the soil, inside the plant, and in the billions of microorganisms living around its roots. All the system needs is a way to capture the electrons that would otherwise disappear into the dirt. A non-metal container filled with soil becomes the foundation of the system because metals interfere with the electrochemical process taking place underground. Plastic nursery pots, buckets, or waterproof containers work well because they allow the soil to remain wet without creating unwanted electrical pathways. At the bottom of the container sits a sheet of carbon felt. Carbon felt is a lightweight fabric made entirely of conductive carbon fibers. It does not corrode, it does not release toxic ions into the soil, and its tangled fibrous structure provides enormous surface area for bacteria to colonize. A stainless steel wire woven through the felt acts as the electrical connection leaving the container. This becomes the anode, the negative electrode buried in the oxygen-poor region of the soil. Above that electrode sits a tightly packed layer of wet soil mixed with compost. The compost serves a critical purpose. It introduces a diverse community of microorganisms into the container, accelerating the formation of the biofilm that will eventually coat the carbon electrode. The soil is packed firmly to eliminate air pockets because oxygen would allow the bacteria to dispose of their electrons chemically instead of sending them through the electrode. On top of that soil layer sits a thin separator of damp sand or peat moss. The separator slows oxygen from diffusing downward into the anaerobic zone where the bacterial fuel cell operates. Another piece of carbon felt sits above the separator. This becomes the cathode, the positive electrode located in the oxygen-rich upper region of the soil. A second wire woven into the carbon fibers exits the container and completes the external circuit. The final layer of soil fills the rest of the pot. Into that soil goes the plant. Not every plant works equally well. Species that prefer constantly moist soil tend to perform best because water allows ions to move freely between the electrodes. One of the most reliable choices is the peace lily, a common houseplant known scientifically as spathiphyllum, which thrives in wet soil and develops an aggressive root system that rapidly colonizes the substrate around the electrodes. Papyrus, sedges, and many aquatic plants perform even better because their natural habitats already contain the oxygen gradients required for microbial fuel cells to function efficiently. Once the plant is watered thoroughly, the setup is complete. The entire construction takes less time than repotting a houseplant. Then comes the difficult part: waiting. During the first few days, the multimeter connected to the electrodes will show almost nothing, perhaps a few hundredths of a volt, sometimes zero. The system is not malfunctioning. The microbial colony simply has not established itself on the carbon electrode yet. Somewhere in the soil, bacteria begin discovering the carbon fibers buried beneath them. Certain species attach themselves to the surface and begin forming a thin biological coating. Over the next several days, those bacteria multiply and recruit neighboring microbes. The biofilm thickens. The oxygen trapped in the lower soil layer becomes depleted as microorganisms consume it during respiration. By the end of the first week, the conditions necessary for a microbial fuel cell begin to emerge. The lower zone becomes anaerobic. The bacteria feeding on sugars released by the plant roots find themselves carrying excess electrons with no oxygen available to accept them. The carbon electrode becomes the only conductive destination available. The microbes extend microscopic protein filaments outward and attach themselves to the carbon fibers. Those filaments behave like electrical cables. As the bacterial colony grows denser, electrons begin accumulating on the electrode surface. They move through the wire toward the cathode at the top of the container, where they finally encounter oxygen and combine with protons from water to form new molecules of H2O. The circuit closes. Somewhere between the second and fourth week, the voltage suddenly rises. A reading of 0.2 volts becomes 0.4, then 0.5, sometimes 0.7. The numbers stabilize and remain surprisingly steady because the system has reached a biological equilibrium. The plant continues producing sugars through photosynthesis. The bacteria continue consuming those sugars and releasing electrons. The electrons continue flowing through the wire. The cycle sustains itself as long as the plant is alive and the soil remains wet. One pot produces a faint electrical current, yet that single container of soil demonstrates something profound. Electricity is emerging from a metabolic relationship between plants and microbes that has existed for hundreds of millions of years. And what one pot does alone, many pots can do together. So what happens when energy production becomes something people can grow themselves? Modern energy infrastructure is built around centralization. Gigantic facilities generate power and transmit it through complex networks of substations, transformers, and transmission lines. The entire structure depends on scale. Massive turbines spinning inside power stations justify the enormous investments required to build and maintain the electrical grid. Plant-based electricity operates in the opposite direction. It thrives in decentralization. Every rooftop garden, every wetland restoration project, every rice field, every backyard pond, and every potted plant represents a potential microgenerator quietly producing electricity through biological processes. The energy output from any single unit remains small, but distributed across millions of locations, the total becomes substantial. The challenge is not scientific feasibility. The challenge is economic structure. Large energy companies are designed to manage centralized infrastructure that produces enormous quantities of electricity from controlled locations. Their business models rely on selling energy produced at those facilities and distributing it through metered networks to consumers who pay monthly bills. Yet technologies that challenge existing economic structures often move slowly from laboratory curiosity to widespread adoption. Solar power faced similar skepticism decades ago. Early photovoltaic cells produced very little electricity and were far more expensive than fossil fuels. Over time, improvements in manufacturing, material science, and policy incentives transformed solar energy into one of the fastest-growing sources of electricity on Earth. Plant microbial fuel cells remain in the early stages of that journey. Researchers are experimenting with new electrode materials, including activated carbon granules and graphene-based composites that dramatically increase the surface area available for bacterial colonization. Improved microbial communities selected for high electron transfer rates have already shown efficiency gains beyond what was possible only a decade ago. The theoretical maximum output of roughly 3.2 watts per square meter has not yet been reached in practical systems, leaving enormous room for innovation. Even at current power densities, the concept remains powerful because the system is fundamentally alive. A person who sees electricity emerging from living soil begins to question assumptions about where energy must come from and who must control it. The realization that biology can generate power continuously with no fuel, no combustion, and no pollution reshapes the boundaries of imagination. And sometimes the most powerful ideas begin not with massive infrastructure projects, but with small experiments on a windowsill. If videos like this spark curiosity about the hidden systems that shaped our world, consider subscribing to Heritage Harvest, and we will see you in the next one.